everyone, this is the lecture review for Chapter 15, which is Social Aspects of Later Life. In this unit, we're going to talk about successful aging, we're going to talk about competence in environmental press, which we'll spend a little bit of time on, and then we'll talk about integrity, retirement, friends and family, and eventually get into housing options and frailty. So our first topic is successful aging. What does this look like? So we've talked before about what we want our old age to look like, and most of us would identify something that looks a bit like this model. So we want to minimize risk of disease, we want to be engaged with our life and with all the things we've done before, and we want to maintain our functioning. We would call this a success. So one theory of how we kind of maintain our success in life, how we cope with changes, is with continuity. And so this says that if there's too little continuity, so if you don't get to do the same things that you've always done, then life is unpredictable, and that can be stressful. But if there's too much, if you do the same thing day out, day in, then it's boredom. So we need to do mostly kind of the same activities as we did when we were younger, but to continue to learn and grow and do new things as well. The competence environmental press model, we're going to spend a minute here. This model looks a little confusing when we pull up the graph, but it's not really too bad. So we've got our competence. All of us have competence. So right now, watching this, you have the upper limit of what you're capable of doing. And your competence is going to differ from mine. So you might be physically stronger, but maybe I have better vision. So we can have difference in our competence. And then we also have demands in our life. We have environmental press. So, we look at these staircases. If you have to go up and down this staircase every time you go home, that's a lot of press. And your competence may be just fine to deal with that. You may be excellent at stairs. You may take them 3 at a time. But for someone who is, lower in their mobility, that's going to be a lot of press, a lot of demand. Also, when we go to the grocery store and there's 40 different kinds of apples and you have to pick which one you like, that's very demanding, especially if you don't have good cognitive skills to be able to make decisions. So we can see that competence and press are going to be different for different environments and different people. So here's our chart that can kind of confuse people, and we're going to start right in the middle of it here. So at this adaptation level, try to move my mouse there for us. This adaptation level right here in the middle, this is our best. This is where we want to be. So this is where our environmental press, those demands put on us, as well as our competence, is kind of right here in the middle at this adaptation level. So if we have somebody then who kind of gives us a little bit more, maybe in the workplace. So we'll say in our workplace we might be right here at this adaptation level. So our demands kind of meet our competence. But maybe our boss then gives us just a little bit more work, a little bit more stimulation, a little bit more challenge. That's going to move us into that zone of maximum performance potential. So this is kind of the best that we can do. We're pushing past our limits just a little bit and doing great. So we might be able to rise to that challenge pretty well. But then say they give us more and more and more and more work, we're going to end up over here in too much press. And that's not going to be good. So we're just going to have this negative affect, bad behaviors. We're going to maybe stop coming to work, be really stressed. So if they put too much press on us, it's too much. We just can't handle it. If we go backwards in our chart, so we go to this adaptation level and go this way, we get in the zone of maximum comfort. This is the job that's really easy for you to do. You know everything about it. You just kind of go there, go on autopilot, get it done, get your paycheck. So it's really, really comforting. It's easy to do. You're good there. But then if you get too little press, we end up on the other side of that chart. And so with too little press, this is the job that's just totally boring. So it's not really you're way, way smarter than what your job is providing for you. You're way more competent, and you're just not having enough press and not enough demands. And so with this, you can end up just doing dumb stuff like, getting in trouble because you're bored. So what this kind of shows us is we want to be generally at that adaptation level. A little bit more press can be good. It can push us to our strongest. A little bit less press can be good. It can make us really comfortable, but we don't want to be on these outskirts here. We don't want to be in that too little or too much press. So that's kind of what that model shows us. So some of these changes older adults will experience in their competence press, if they are high in competence, if they have this change happen, maybe they have to move to a nursing home, they could be proactive. So they're going to choose new behaviors to show that they can control that environment. On the other hand, we can end up falling into docility, and so with this, we kind of allow the situation to dictate what we're able to do. So if the older adult moves to a new home, they might just say, well, such is life. That's what's going to happen now. That's all. This is Erickson's work. So we have integrity versus despair. So he said at the end of our life, we're going to reflect on our life, we're going to have this life review, and if we judge our life as meaningful and productive, we'll have integrity. But if we judge that our life has been meaningless, then we have despair. So it's really hard to get to the end of the life and have despair. It's not a good thing, kind of that, the whole I've wasted my time here on earth. It's not a good feeling. So Erickson would say that we want most of us to reach that integrity. We judge that we've had a meaningful life. When we ask older adults about their life and how they're feeling, many will say that they feel a great deal of subjective well-being. So this chart actually shows that as we age, we generally have a positive feeling about our life, and we think we've done pretty good, and we feel pretty well about our lives. So that's a good thing. We know we often have negative stereotypes of aging, but really it seems that when people are aging, they feel happy about that. They feel happy about their life. Spirituality is one way that older adults often report feeling comfort, and so it helps them cope with some of the changes they might experience in housing or health. So kind of research has shown that they really do this in 3 ways. So first, their religion helps them determine what can be changed. So what about this situation can I affect? Work towards change when it's possible to do so, and then when it's not possible, kind of disconnecting from those unchangeable parts. So many people in the research will report in the step 3 that maybe they give their problem up to their higher power. So this kind of spirituality can help older adults to cope with life stress. One type of stressor that older adults may face, and may internalize this as a stressor, it might also be something they're excited about, is retirement. So this is a transition period. It really ends our employment. Many people will have a sudden retirement, so it'll just be kind of what we call crisp. So they'll get to maybe 70 years old and pack up their desk and get their watch and go home. Other people will have a more gradual or blurred retirement. So there's many faculty members who will do this. They'll teach 5 classes and then go down to 4, 3, 2, 1, and then quit teaching. So that's very much a blurred retirement. One reason this is stressful is because people lose their occupational identity. So many of us will say, hi, I'm Bob, I'm a lawyer, or whatever. So you kind of lose that, I'm a ... The AARP is an organization that tries to help people reimagine their life after retirement. So there's a link here for that. Many people are going to retire by choice, but there are other reasons, of course. So health, finances. An important kind of thing about retirement, though, is that many of us are not ready. So many, even older adults who are getting to this point where they would expect to retire soon, they're not ready. And so this graph kind of shows those individuals who lost income between 2007 and 2011, so with the Great Recession. And we saw this really hit those who were nearing retirement age to a much greater deal. Also, when we ask people how much money they have set aside for retirement, 28% say less than $1,000. So the recommended amount that you'd have is 11 times your final salary with Social Security. So what they would say would be to multiply, say you end your job at $50,000 a year. They would say take $50,000, multiply by 11, and that's what you should have in savings. So we can see that very, very few people actually meet these benchmarks for what they're going to need in their retirement. Adjusting to retirement, generally this is good. So we know people often have a better adjustment to retirement if they wanted to retire, if they're in good health, if they've got support from others, they have financial security, so they're not stressed about money. That painting is done by former President George W. Bush, so he's taken to painting during his retirement. So, if you've got hobbies or other things to do, people often adjust better to their retirement. Some information about friends and family in late life. So one group or one name that we kind of call individuals is a social convoy. So with our older adults, we see older adults, like I think of the Golden Girls. So it's this group of people that kind of journey with us. So it's almost like this convoy moving together throughout life is our social convoy. So our convoy model then, we're often thinking of those moving with us as being our closest friends, but there's also casual friends, good friends, service providers. So my dad is a mail carrier, and he has so many friends on his route. They give him tons of alcohol at Christmas, which is kind of funny. I don't know why people give alcohol to the mail carrier, but they do. So that means a lot to them as somebody in their social convoy. And then people you recognize and you don't know their names. Our friends and our siblings, we've talked about siblings being one of the longest running relationships. So late life friendship, especially for women, this seems to help them the most. We rely on friends for our independence, for our intimacy. Those LinkedIn videos there from YouTube are just a couple of older adult friendships that have been profiled. Some people have been friends for a very long time. Siblings can be our longest running friends, but even parental favoritism, this is kind of interesting. So when people are young, if the parents make it obvious they favor one child over the other, sometimes the parents can be long deceased and the kids are still fighting about it. Or the parents can need care and it comes up. Well, mom and dad always liked you best, so I don't see why I'd be the one taking care of them. I think that's your responsibility. So it can become an issue when those parents are aging. This theory, socio-emotional selectivity theory, or what we call SST, is something that's a really interesting kind of idea. So this says, as our life is going, we all have goals, we all have motivation to act. So they say these motivations then change across the lifespan, so we get this crossover in middle age. So for our younger people, what we're really interested in is forming our friendships based on knowledge needs. So we want to know more. We want to experience more with people who are different than us, maybe go to a poetry reading, book signing, concert, learn more about the world. Whereas those who are older often have motivations based on their emotional needs. So instead of going to a book signing with an author they've never met, they would prefer to go to tea with a friend that they haven't seen in a few years. So what's going to make them feel emotionally good? They want those social ties, social connections, emotional goals. So our younger people are working through knowledge goals, our older people are working through emotion-related goals. So we can kind of see that there. Book signing for the younger adults and meeting those emotional needs for our older adults. We've seen this marriage chart before, and we talked about initially with the earlier stage of life and how, around middle adulthood, we're kind of crashed down there in the middle. But our older adults, they're inching up here, so they're in retirement. For many, this is a second honeymoon. They've been married a long time. They're starting to get that time to focus on themselves. So many older adults really report that their marriage is good. If they've been married this long, they're really less likely to perceive their partner negatively. So they've kind of grown used to their partner. They've grown used to any challenges that they have in their relationships. And you generally hear much less negativity from older adults in terms of their marriage. Caring for and losing a partner. Spousal caregiving is very, very stressful. So we think this is more stressful than caring for a parent, often because these partners were on even keel. So they were, equals, which is different than the parent-child relationship. Those whose marriages were better before the caregiving, this often helps them to buffer that stress of caregiving. Partner's death obviously is highly traumatic, and it can even be a risk factor for one's own mortality. So you hear those news stories. The one I've linked in here is a couple married 73 years, dying minutes apart. So you hear that happening, and often that trauma of losing the partner, especially those long-term partners, can be too much for older adults. Women are more likely to be widowed, which leads them to financial concerns, especially generations who did not work outside the home and therefore were more reliant on the partner for income. So women have more difficulty when widowed, but men recover very slowly when widowed. So it's very, very difficult for both genders, really, to lose a spouse. Great-grandparenthood, older adults see this as a wonderful kind of milestone of longevity. So they've lived long enough to see this next generation. Women, this is happening more to women because they live longer. But it's a really great kind of feeling for many great-grandparents. They often report not being as involved as grandparents themselves, but feeling that it's a, kind of a sense of renewal. So talking a little bit now, we'll shift into frailty in older adults and where older adults live. So for frailty, we call frail older adults those who have physical disabilities, psych disorders, cognitive issues, or those who are just very, very sick. So this really is the minority of older adults. This is not everybody. So we don't hit a certain age like 70 and then just become frail. That's not how it happens. This does increase with age. So if you look at like 90-year-olds, more of them will be frail than if you look at a group of 70-year-olds. How we know somebody needs help or might, require more assistance in their living is if they have difficulty with their ADLs or their IADLs. So ADLs are the activities of daily living, and those are things that you have to do just to live, like eat, dress yourself, groom, use the toilet. The instrumental activities have a cognitive component. So these are things like housekeeping, taking your medication. If you can't remember if you've taken your meds, that's a very dangerous situation. You can end up taking, 4 or 5 doses of your medication. So they have a cognitive component that you need to remember. So if individuals have difficulty with these tasks, that kind of helps dictate where they should live as they age. So our functional health kind of helps us determine what housing is optional. Most older adults really want to age in place. They want to live independently, often in their own homes or in a retirement kind of community, but where they live independently without much help from others. But if they're struggling with their ADLs or their IADLs, that's really not going to be possible. So then we have many people living with assisted living facilities. So this, these people don't need round-the-clock care. They don't need somebody in there with them constantly checking on them every 5 minutes, but they just need some general help. Those in nursing homes, they do require the constant medical care. So if you're in an assisted living facility, somebody might come back and check on you daily. If you're in a nursing home, that's where you get kind of the more traditional rounds, somebody being constantly there and checking on you. But these are not the only ways that older adults live. So older adults can obviously, live at home, live in assisted living, live in nursing homes. They could also live with family members. Some emerging developments. This video from the Today Show has a look at a nursing home, but that doubles as a preschool. So you've got little kids and these older adults kind of living in the same environment, doing the same kinds of activities and crafts, and they find that this really is beneficial for both parties there. The Dementia Village is something really interesting. And in this Dementia Village, which is, not in the States, it's in one of these European nations, but they've got a whole village set up for people with intense dementia who kind of don't know really where they are. They need that round-the-clock care, but they set the village up as though it were a real village, and these individuals are just allowed to wander around and to go to the shops, get their hair done, but everyone is trained and experienced to deal with those individuals with dementia. So it's a really interesting idea of kind of giving them their freedom, their ability to wander and explore their environment, but also keeping them safe and keeping them well cared for. So there's a lot of other kind of arrangements for these older adults to dictate where they might live. So it gives us a lot of thought about where we might want to spend our old age. But that's the end of Chapter 15. Bye.